Most people think investing fails because markets are unpredictable. That is a comforting lie. The truth is more uncomfortable. Investors fail because they cannot control themselves. They panic when prices fall. They chase when prices rise. They break their own promises at the worst possible moment. The market does not take money from people. People hand it over through emotional decisions. Imagine this. You buy an investment feeling confident. Days later, prices fall. Your heart beats faster. Your mind searches for reassurance. News becomes louder. Opinions become stronger. Suddenly, logic disappears. In that moment, intelligence is useless. Only discipline matters. A famous investor once said, "The market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." Patience, however, is not natural. The human brain evolved for survival, not long-term thinking. It reacts quickly. It seeks safety. It avoids pain. Markets punish these instincts. This is why even very smart people lose money. They rely on knowledge when they should rely on systems. This book is not here to teach you predictions. Predictions create false confidence. This book is here to teach protection. Protection from fear. Protection from greed. Protection from your own impulses. The disciplined investor does not wake up guessing what the market will do. The disciplined investor wakes up knowing what he will do. That certainty is power. Discipline is not willpower. Willpower fades under stress. Discipline is structure. It is rules written in calm moments. It is filters that block dangerous opportunities. It is checklists that slow the mind. It is systems that work silently in the background. When chaos arrives, discipline steps forward. Many investors believe freedom means flexibility. In markets, flexibility often means inconsistency. Inconsistency leads to mistakes. Mistakes repeated lead to permanent loss. A wise thinker said, "Success comes from avoiding stupidity rather than seeking brilliance." This handbook follows that idea. You do not need genius. You need guardrails. As you listen to this book, you may feel uncomfortable. That is a good sign. Discipline challenges ego. It removes excuses. It replaces stories with rules. It replaces hope with preparation. The goal is not excitement. The goal is survival and steady progress. In the first chapter, we will begin at the foundation. Before rules, before filters, before systems. We will explore why discipline matters more than intelligence. Because once you understand that truth, everything else in this handbook will finally make sense. Chapter 1. Why discipline matters more than intelligence. Most people believe successful investors are smarter than everyone else. They imagine complex formulas, secret insights, and superior brains. This belief feels safe because it shifts responsibility away from behavior. If success comes from intelligence, then failure feels excusable. But markets tell a different story. Again and again, intelligent people lose money. Again and again, calm, disciplined people quietly win. Intelligence helps you understand information. Discipline decides how you act on that information. In investing, action matters more than ideas. A brilliant idea acted on at the wrong time can destroy wealth. A simple idea followed consistently can build a lifetime of security. The market does not reward who knows the most. The market rewards who behaves the best. Think about moments of stress. A sudden fall in prices. A scary headline. A loud prediction. In these moments, the mind does not search for truth. It searches for relief. It wants the pain to stop. Intelligence becomes a tool to justify emotional decisions. People use smart-sounding reasons to do foolish things. They sell to feel safe. They buy to feel included. Discipline blocks this process. It does not argue with emotions. It ignores them. A legendary investor once said, "Investing is simple, but not easy. It is simple because the principles are few. Buy good businesses. Avoid permanent loss. Think long-term. It is not easy because humans are not built for patience. We feel losses more strongly than gains. We fear being wrong more than being poor. Discipline exists to protect us from these instincts. Intelligence seeks optimization. Discipline seeks survival. Survival comes first. Without survival, there is no compounding. Without compounding, there is no long-term success. Many investors fail not because they chose badly. They fail because they could not stay invested. They exit at the bottom. They hesitate at the top. They constantly interrupt the process. Consider two investors. One is highly intelligent but emotionally reactive. The other is average but deeply disciplined. Over time, the second investor wins. Why? Because discipline keeps them in the game. It avoids catastrophic mistakes. It allows time to do the heavy lifting. Time rewards consistency, not brilliance. Discipline also creates clarity. When you know the rules, you stop negotiating with yourself. There is no inner debate. There is no regret after action. You follow the process and accept the outcome. This reduces stress. Stress reduction improves decision-making. Better decisions compound just like money does. Many people confuse confidence with competence. Confidence often comes from recent success. Recent success is dangerous. It creates the illusion of control. Discipline remains humble. It assumes uncertainty. It prepares for bad outcomes. A wise thinker said it is not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid. Discipline accepts difficulty without drama. Another mistake intelligent investors make is complexity. They believe complexity equals superiority. Complex strategies break under pressure. They require constant adjustment. They increase chances of error. Discipline favors simplicity. Simple rules are easier to follow. Easier rules are followed more often. What you follow consistently beats what you understand occasionally. Discipline also limits damage. Everyone makes mistakes. The disciplined investor survives mistakes. The undisciplined investor magnifies them. Small losses become large losses. Temporary setbacks become permanent scars. A famous investor said, "The first rule is never lose money." This rule is not literal, it is a mindset. Protect first, grow second. When discipline is missing, intelligence becomes dangerous. Smart people argue with reality. They defend bad positions. They wait for validation. They confuse patience with stubbornness. Discipline knows when to stop. It knows when not to act. Often doing nothing is the hardest and most profitable decision. Discipline is not rigid thinking. It is prepared thinking. Rules are written before emotions arrive. They are tested in calm moments. They exist so you do not have to decide under pressure. This is freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from noise. Freedom from regret. As this chapter closes, one truth should be clear. Intelligence can help you start. Only discipline can help you finish. Markets will challenge your patience. They will test your confidence. They will tempt your ego. Without discipline, knowledge will betray you. In the next chapter, we will expose the emotional traps that destroy investors. You will see why discipline is not optional, it is necessary. Because before you build rules, filters, and systems, you must understand the enemy they are designed to control. Chapter 2. The emotional traps that destroy investors. Every investor believes they are rational. This belief is itself the first trap. The human mind is emotional first, logical second. We feel before we think. We react before we analyze. Markets exploit this weakness again and again. The strongest emotion in investing is fear. Fear appears suddenly. Prices fall, headlines turn dark, predictions become extreme. The body reacts as if danger is real and immediate. Heart rate increases, muscles tighten. The mind looks for escape. Selling feels like relief. Relief feels like safety. This is how fear convinces people to lock in losses. A famous investor said the stock market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient. Fear makes people active at the worst time. Greed is fear in a different costume. It appears when prices rise. Others seem to be getting rich. Stories of easy money spread quickly. Greed whispers that this time is different. It says waiting is foolish. It says caution means missing out. People buy not because value is clear, but because regret feels unbearable. Greed pushes investors to abandon discipline. Rules feel slow. Systems feel restrictive. Emotion takes control. Another powerful trap is hope. Hope is dangerous because it feels positive. Hope keeps people holding bad investments. Hope delays difficult decisions. Hope turns temporary mistakes into long-term damage. Investors tell themselves stories. The price will recover. The company will turn around. The market does not reward hope. The market rewards realism. Discipline replaces hope with rules. Ego is a silent destroyer. Ego wants to be right. Ego hates admitting mistakes. Ego ties self-worth to decisions. When ego is involved, investors defend positions instead of evaluating them. They ignore new information. They dismiss warnings. A wise thinker once said, "It is hard to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on not understanding it." In investing, ego depends on being right. Discipline allows you to be wrong without damage. Another trap is action bias. Doing something feels productive. Doing nothing feels uncomfortable. Markets do not pay for activity. They pay for correct timing and patience. Many investors trade because silence feels empty. They confuse movement with progress. A disciplined investor understands that waiting is an action. Sometimes the best decision is no decision. Social pressure is another hidden force. Humans are wired to follow the group. When everyone is buying, it feels safe to buy. When everyone is selling, it feels safe to sell. Safety in numbers is an illusion in markets. The crowd is often wrong at extremes. A famous investor said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." This is easy to say and hard to do. Discipline exists to make it possible. Recency bias is a subtle trap. The mind gives more weight to recent events. If markets have risen for a long time, people expect more rise. If markets have fallen recently, people expect more fall. The future feels like the present extended. This bias causes people to buy high and sell low. Discipline looks beyond recent emotions. It relies on predefined rules, not recent memories. Confirmation bias also plays a role. People search for information that agrees with them. They ignore information that challenges them. News becomes a mirror, not a window. Intelligence makes this bias worse. Smart people build better arguments for bad decisions. Discipline cuts through this by forcing objective checks. Perhaps the most dangerous trap is overconfidence. A few good decisions create the illusion of skill. Luck feels like mastery. Risk feels unnecessary. Investors increase position size. They ignore protection. Eventually, reality returns. Markets are excellent teachers. Their lessons are expensive. A disciplined investor assumes uncertainty even after success. All these traps have one thing in common. They operate automatically. They do not ask permission. They appear strongest under stress. This is why discipline must exist before emotions arrive. You cannot think your way out of panic. You must act your way around it. Discipline does not remove emotion. It removes emotional authority. Feelings still exist. They simply lose control. Rules decide actions. Filters decide focus. Checklists slow decisions. Systems replace impulses. If you remember only one thing from this chapter, remember this. Emotions are not your enemy. Unmanaged emotions are. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to feel without acting blindly. In the next chapter, we will begin building personal investing rules. You will learn how to convert discipline from an idea into a structure. Because once emotions are exposed, the next step is containment. Chapter 3. Building Personal Investing Rules. Rules are the foundation of discipline. Without rules, discipline is only a good intention. Good intentions disappear under pressure. Rules stay. They act when emotions try to take control. Most investors believe rules reduce freedom. In reality, rules create freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from noise. Freedom from constant decision-making. When a rule exists, you do not negotiate with yourself. You simply follow the process. A rule is a decision made in advance. It is created in calm moments. It is written when fear and greed are absent. This is important. The worst time to decide is during stress. Rules protect you from that moment. Many people say they will be disciplined. Very few define what discipline means. Discipline without definition is useless. Rules give discipline a shape. They answer questions before they appear. When to buy. When to sell. When to wait. When to do nothing. A famous investor once said, "You should never make a decision you do not fully understand." Rules force understanding. If you cannot explain a rule simply, you do not understand it. Simple rules survive chaos. Complex rules collapse under pressure. Your rules must be personal. Copying someone else blindly creates conflict. Different people have different risk tolerance. Different people have different patience. Different people have different goals. A rule that works for one investor may destroy another. Discipline works only when it fits your temperament. Start with rules about behavior, not prediction. Do not create rules about what the market will do. Create rules about what you will do. Markets are uncontrollable. Your actions are controllable. This is where power exists. A basic rule might define how much loss you are willing to accept. Another rule might define how much of your capital goes into one idea. Another rule might define when you stop following news. These rules may sound boring. Boring is good. Boring keeps you alive. Rules must be written. Unwritten rules are forgotten rules. Write them clearly. Read them often. Especially after success. Success is more dangerous than failure. Failure creates caution. Success creates arrogance. Rules protect you from both. Many investors break rules silently. They adjust them in their mind. They promise to return to discipline later. Later rarely comes. A broken rule weakens all other rules. Discipline is not flexible when it matters. Flexibility in rules leads to chaos in results. Rules must also include inaction. Most damage is caused by unnecessary action. A rule that says, "Do nothing unless conditions are met," is powerful. Waiting is uncomfortable. Waiting feels like laziness. In reality, waiting is discipline in its purest form. A wise thinker once said, "Life is easier when you remove decisions." Investing is no different. Rules remove decisions. They reduce mental load. They reduce emotional fatigue. A tired mind makes poor choices. Rules preserve energy for what matters. Another important rule is review. Rules are not static. They must be reviewed calmly. Review does not mean changing frequently. It means checking alignment with reality. It means learning without reacting. A disciplined investor improves the system, not the impulse. Rules should never be changed during emotional moments. Never change rules during panic. Never change rules during excitement. Change rules only after reflection. Change rules only with evidence. Otherwise, rules become excuses. One of the most powerful rules is the rule of survival. Avoid permanent loss. Protect capital. Opportunity is endless. Capital is limited. A famous investor said the first rule is never lose money. The meaning is clear. Survival comes before growth. Rules also protect relationships. Investing stress damages families. It damages sleep. It damages health. Clear rules reduce stress. Reduced stress improves life. Wealth without peace is failure. Rules will be tested. Markets will challenge them. Friends will question them. Media will mock them. This is normal. Discipline often looks wrong before it looks right. Short-term discomfort buys long-term stability. You may feel rules limit upside. They do. They also limit downside. Downside destroys compounding. Compounding is fragile. Once broken, it is hard to repair. Rules exist to keep compounding alive. As you build rules, you will notice something. Confidence increases. Not confidence from prediction. Confidence from preparation. You no longer fear every headline. You no longer chase every opportunity. You know who you are as an investor. This chapter is about ownership. Ownership of behavior. Ownership of mistakes. Ownership of process. Rules shift focus from outcome to action. Outcomes fluctuate. Actions compound. In the next chapter, we will build filters that protect your capital. Rules define behavior. Filters define selection. Together, they form the first strong wall between you and emotional damage. Chapter 4. Filters that protect your capital. Most investors believe opportunity is rare. This belief pushes them to act quickly. Speed feels intelligent. Urgency feels important. In reality, opportunity is endless. Risk is what must be controlled. Filters exist to control risk. A filter is a rule that decides what you will ignore. Ignoring is a skill. Ignoring protects focus. Ignoring protects capital. A disciplined investor spends more time saying no than saying yes. This is not pessimism. This is protection. Without filters, everything looks attractive. Stories sound convincing. Charts look promising. Predictions feel confident. Filters cut through noise. They remove ideas before emotion gets involved. They simplify the world. The first purpose of a filter is elimination. Most investments should not qualify. This truth is uncomfortable. People want abundance. Markets reward selectivity. A famous investor once said, "You only need a few good decisions in your lifetime." Filters help you wait for those decisions. One common filter is understanding. If you cannot clearly explain how a business makes money, you move on. Confusion is not complexity. Confusion is danger. Understanding creates calm. Calm supports discipline. Another filter is financial strength. Weak balance sheets create fragile companies. Fragile companies break under stress. Debt magnifies mistakes. A disciplined investor avoids businesses that cannot survive hard times. Survival always comes first. Another important filter is behavior. How does management treat shareholders? Do actions match words? Are incentives aligned? Numbers matter. Behavior matters more. Trust is built through consistency. Filters help you avoid stories that sound good but act badly. Valuation is also a filter. Even great businesses can be bad investments at the wrong price. Paying too much removes margin of safety. Margin of safety protects against error. A wise investor said, "Price is what you pay, and value is what you get." Filters remind you to separate excitement from value. Time is another filter. If an investment requires constant monitoring, it is dangerous. Stress indicates fragility. Good investments allow patience. They do not demand attention every day. A calm investment supports a calm life. Filters also protect against trends. Trends feel powerful. Trends feel inevitable. Trends often end painfully. A filter that avoids fashionable ideas saves money. The crowd arrives late. The crowd leaves late. Filters keep you out of both moments. Many investors skip filters because they fear missing out. Missing out feels worse than losing money. This is emotional. Discipline corrects this thinking. Missing out is temporary. Loss can be permanent. Filters favor survival over excitement. Filters must be simple. Complex filters create false confidence. Simple filters are easier to apply. Easier filters are used consistently. Consistency matters more than precision. Filters must also be respected. A filter ignored once becomes optional. Optional filters fail when needed most. If an idea fails a filter, the decision is already made. There is no debate. There is no exception. Exceptions destroy systems. Filters should be reviewed, but not frequently changed. Changing filters often creates instability. Stability builds trust in the process. Trust reduces emotional interference. Review filters during calm periods. Never review filters during market extremes. Filters also save time. Time wasted on bad ideas is a hidden cost. Mental energy is limited. Filters protect energy for high-quality decisions. Quality decisions require clarity. Clarity requires limits. One powerful filter is the question of downside. Ask what happens if things go wrong. If the answer is unacceptable, you move on. Upside is exciting. Downside decides survival. A disciplined investor always studies downside first. Filters also align investing with life goals. Money is a tool, not a score. An investment that creates constant anxiety is expensive. Peace of mind has value. Filters help protect that value. As filters improve, something interesting happens. Opportunities become fewer. Confidence becomes stronger. You stop chasing. You start waiting. Waiting is uncomfortable at first. Then it becomes peaceful. Filters do not guarantee success. Nothing does. They reduce the chance of disaster. Avoiding disaster is the fastest path to long-term success. Compounding works only if capital survives. This chapter is about boundaries. Boundaries protect what matters. Without boundaries, discipline collapses. With boundaries, discipline becomes natural. In the next chapter, we will build checklists for clear thinking. Filters decide what enters your world. Checklists decide how you think once something passes. Together, they create calm structure in a chaotic environment. Chapter 5. Checklists for clear thinking. Even disciplined investors make mistakes. Mistakes are part of reality. The goal is not perfection. The goal is reduction. Checklists exist to reduce avoidable errors. The human mind is unreliable under pressure. It forgets. It rushes. It fills gaps with assumptions. Checklists slow the mind. They force attention. They turn vague thinking into deliberate thinking. In investing, most mistakes are not analytical. They are behavioral. People skip steps. They fall in love with ideas. They ignore warnings. Checklists interrupt this process. They ask questions before commitment. A famous thinker once said, "It is not what you do not know that hurts you. It is what you know for sure that just is not so." Checklists challenge certainty. They create friction. Friction prevents careless decisions. A checklist is not a prediction tool. It is a thinking tool. It does not tell you what will happen. It tells you whether you have thought clearly. This distinction is important. Checklists must be simple. Long, complicated lists are ignored. Ignored tools are useless. A good checklist is short but powerful. Each question must matter. Each question must protect against a known mistake. One question might ask if you understand the business. Another might ask if the balance sheet is strong. Another might ask if the price includes optimism. Another might ask what could go wrong. These questions seem obvious. Obvious questions are often skipped. Checklists force you to face them. Checklists should include behavioral questions. How do I feel about this decision? Am I excited? Am I afraid? Am I rushing? Emotion does not disqualify an investment. Unrecognized emotion does. Checklists make emotion visible. Another important checklist item is time horizon. Why am I buying this? What must happen for this to work? How long am I willing to wait? Vague answers signal weak thinking. Clear answers signal preparation. Checklists also protect against narrative traps. Stories are powerful. They create meaning. They create confidence. They also create blindness. A checklist asks for evidence, not stories. Evidence is slower. Evidence is safer. A wise investor once said, "Investing is most intelligent when it is most businesslike." Businesses use checklists. They respect process. They understand that consistency beats inspiration. Investing should be no different. Checklists should be used every time, not only when things feel uncertain. Confidence is when checklists are needed most. Confidence invites shortcuts. Shortcuts invite mistakes. Many investors abandon checklists after success. They believe experience replaces structure. Experience without structure creates arrogance. Arrogance leads to large losses. Checklists keep experience humble. Checklists also create learning. When a decision fails, you review the checklist. You see what was missed. You improve the process. Learning becomes systematic. Pain becomes useful. Checklists should be written and stored. Mental checklists fade. Written checklists remain. They remind you even when memory fails. They guide you when emotion is loud. Checklists must evolve slowly. They should not change after every outcome. Outcomes are noisy. Process is what matters. Change checklists only after repeated evidence. Otherwise, you chase randomness. Another benefit of checklists is peace of mind. Once the checklist is complete, you accept the outcome. You did your work. You followed your process. Regret decreases. Stress decreases. Clarity increases. Checklists also support patience. They remind you why you invested. They reduce second-guessing. They anchor decisions during volatility. Anchors prevent drift. A disciplined investor does not ask, "Am I right?" He asks, "Did I follow my process?" Process-focused thinking changes everything. It shifts control back to you. Some investors fear checklists make investing mechanical. Mechanical is good. Mechanical removes ego. Mechanical removes drama. Markets already provide enough drama. Checklists do not remove judgment. They support judgment. They ensure judgment is applied where it matters. They prevent judgment from being hijacked by emotion. Over time, checklists become habit. Habits reduce effort. Reduced effort increases consistency. Consistency compounds results. As you use checklists, you will notice fewer surprises. Not because markets become predictable, but because your thinking becomes prepared. Preparation reduces shock. Reduced shock reduces mistakes. This chapter is about clarity. Clarity comes from structure. Structure creates calm. Calm supports discipline. In the next chapter, we will move from tools to systems. Rules define behavior. Filters define selection. Checklists define thinking. Systems bring everything together into one steady process. Because the ultimate goal is not isolated decisions. The goal is sustainable discipline. Chapter 6. Systems that remove emotion and sustain discipline. Rules, filters, and checklists are powerful, but alone they can still fail. They rely on memory. They rely on effort. They rely on mood. Systems remove this weakness. Systems turn discipline into routine. Routine does not argue. Routine does not panic. Routine simply runs. A system is a sequence of actions performed the same way every time. It decides in advance. It executes without drama. It reduces choice. Less choice means less emotional conflict. This is the hidden strength of systems. Most investors think freedom comes from flexibility. In investing, flexibility often means inconsistency. Inconsistency produces unpredictable behavior. Unpredictable behavior produces unstable results. Systems trade flexibility for reliability. Reliability wins over time. A disciplined system begins with saving. Saving happens before spending. Investing happens after saving. This order matters. A famous thinker said, "Do not save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving." Systems enforce priorities without negotiation. Next comes allocation. A system decides how money is divided. It decides risk limits. It decides exposure. It prevents concentration driven by excitement. It prevents hesitation driven by fear. Allocation rules protect the whole structure. Then comes selection. Filters decide what qualifies. Most ideas are rejected. Rejection is success. Every rejected idea reduces risk. Systems are comfortable with empty hands. They wait without stress. After selection comes evaluation. Checklists guide thinking. They ensure important questions are asked. They ensure emotions are recognized. They ensure logic leads. Systems never skip this step. Skipping is where damage begins. Execution is the next phase. Execution happens only when all conditions are met. No conditions, no action. This removes impulse. This removes timing anxiety. Systems act rarely but deliberately. Then comes monitoring. Monitoring does not mean constant watching. Constant watching creates stress. Stress creates interference. Systems define review periods. Outside those periods, nothing changes. Silence becomes normal. Calm becomes default. A system also includes exit rules. Exit rules are written before entry. They are not negotiated later. They define acceptable loss. They define reasons for selling. This protects against hope. Hope is replaced by structure. Systems also include inactivity. Doing nothing is part of the plan. Cash is a position. Waiting is an action. A system that forces action is dangerous. A system that allows patience is strong. One of the greatest benefits of systems is emotional distance. Distance improves judgment. Judgment improves outcomes. Outcomes reinforce trust. Trust reduces temptation to interfere. The system becomes self-strengthening. Many investors sabotage systems by interfering. They override rules. They react to noise. They adjust based on emotion. Interference breaks compounding. A system only works when respected. Respect is non-negotiable. A wise investor once said, "Successful investing takes time, discipline, and patience." Systems deliver all three. They create time by reducing decisions. They enforce discipline by removing choice. They cultivate patience by design. Systems also scale with life. As responsibilities grow, attention shrinks. A good system survives busier schedules. It does not demand constant focus. It works quietly in the background. Another benefit of systems is identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who guesses. You become someone who follows process. Identity shapes behavior. Behavior shapes results. Systems do not guarantee success. Nothing can. They guarantee survival. They reduce catastrophic mistakes. They protect compounding. Compounding does the rest. Conclusion. The disciplined investor is not fearless. He feels fear but does not obey it. He feels greed but does not chase it. He feels uncertainty but does not freeze. This handbook was never about beating markets. It was about building control. Control over behavior. Control over decisions. Control over reactions. Markets will remain unpredictable. News will remain loud. Opinions will remain endless. Your discipline must remain stable. Rules give you boundaries. Filters protect your focus. Checklists clarify your thinking. Systems sustain your behavior. Together they form a shield against emotional mistakes, a shield against permanent loss, a shield that allows time to work in your favor. A famous thinker once said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." This is the truth of investing. You do not need brilliance. You do not need speed. You do not need excitement. You need consistency. Build your discipline. Trust your structure. Let time do the heavy lifting. This is the path of the disciplined investor, and it is enough.